You are listening to Inside IASB, a podcast series dedicated to informing and encouraging Illinois School Board members. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Isaac Warren. I'm the Director of Digital Communications at the Illinois Association of School Boards. And with me today, I have Jim Lima, who's a 20-year plus serving school board member in Illinois for the Leiden High School District 212. And today we're going to be talking about just new board members, what it's like to serve as a new board member, and calling on the experiences of what it's been like serving for 20 years. And I'm really looking forward to the great expertise that Jim's going to be sharing with us. So Jim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Good morning, Isaac. Thank you for having me. This experience is something new to me as well, and feels like almost like the first day that I became a school board member into this technology aspect. And it's just an amazing process. And just hopefully it can shed some light on some of your new board members and hopefully give them some advice or give them some ideas on how to proceed forward. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Yes. And I agree. I think this is going to be a really insightful episode for our members, new board members and experienced board members. And I was just wondering if you happen to remember your first school board meeting. Do you remember what year that was and kind of what you were feeling at that time?
Well, that was 20 years ago. And boy, I tell you what, it's feels like what I'm going through now with this podcast. When I first got on board, we had a very longevity of board members, and we still do to this day. Right now, our youngest board member is 7 years into it, and our oldest is 39 years into it. So we have a very stable board. So it was very intimidating when I stepped into that boardroom and say at the table, just listening to everybody socialize together prior, and then as the board went into action, it just you felt nervous on whether to answer, how to get involved, and took a few moments just to take in what was happening. And I did that for the first few board meetings until I slowly got into the process of getting involved in the meetings. It's just a scary thing. It's just something that you have to put off to the wayside and put your mind into and say, I can do it. And you can. You ran through the election process. You joined the board for a purpose and a reason. Just give it time to nurture it, and eventually you'll be talking and getting involved like the rest of them do.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sure it can feel very daunting with what probably feels like all eyes on you in your community serving on the school board. Jim, let's just start off right off the bat and discuss, what do you see the primary role of a school board member being?
Well, basically, our most important job is realistically hiring the superintendent, and he's the one who runs the school. We're there to support him, and we also set the policy and the procedures. We oversee the budget and approving the budget. Our focus is basically to be the representative of our communities. We're there to advocate for the students, and that's really the main goal. If you can follow in those aspects, you can end up being a very successful and long-striving board member.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a perfect encapsulation of what the role of a board is. It really is just that superintendent component, and it's very critical, very important role there. Here's a kind of a fun question. How much do board members get paid?
That is really, you're right. It's a fun question. We get paid $0, although there are other states that do actually have it as a paid position, but here in Illinois, we don't get anything for it. I would have to say 99% of our board members or board members in the state of Illinois do it because they want that fulfillment of being able to give back to the community, watch the children grow and be successful, and just the biggest joy for me personally is at graduation. And not only, we as board members hand out the diplomas. So not only just handing out the diplomas, but also to all the children, even our special needs children, just seeing the excitement on their faces when they come up on stage and you hand them their diploma, that's the biggest joy for me to see.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure that's incredibly rewarding to see that each year, knowing that the students are walking across that aisle because of decisions made by the board and the superintendent systems, just all that collaboration going on. It's really, really cool to see. how would you say a board member could balance the needs of students and teachers and the community? Like we said, the primary role is the superintendent hiring, but there are some, day-to-day things that go on at the board meeting. So how would you say a board member can balance all of those without feeling overwhelmed?
The biggest thing is we're there because of the kids, and they have their needs and concerns. And what we've done in our district, I think we're one of the leading forefronts of bringing student board members to the table.
Mm-hmm.
We're a two-campus high school district, approximately 3,500 students. And what we've done is we have a board member from each building. So we have two board members that sit at our table. And what they do is, we have a spot for them to actually give their input and talk to the board as a whole and the public as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
what their needs are, what the students are talking about. Because as a board member, we don't hear what's going on out in the classrooms or out in the fields or extracurricular activity. They bring it to us, and I always say surprisingly, but in the high school level, they don't come and say, well, the kids want to know if we have to go to school, today or tomorrow, or if we can end school early. They come with sincere, issues, from anywhere from stuff that's being fed to them in the cafeteria to bus transportation to
Mm-hmm.
extracurricular activities, so they're the biggest factor in bringing issues to it. And then as far as with your teachers and everything, your superintendent and administrators are basically your voice to them. You may get a teacher that will see you and come up to you and make comments to you, but the soup and administrators will bring issues that they may have to the table. And what's important is you not only listen to what they're saying or what the teacher's feelings are, but you need to react on them to assure them that you're there and you're taking their concerns and issues as well. And then for the community, we are representing the community, the taxpayers. Have open houses. We can invite them to different board meetings, although, they only generally come if there's an issue. But we like to send out newsletters twice a year, just keeping them informed that way. Having our website gives them an interest into the schools. And then we'll occasionally, put out a survey, to see what their feelings are on different topics and get their opinions on different issues. So the whole thing is just be transparent to everyone, have that open door policy where you can address anything that should come to the table from any three of those groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency is very key, and allowing you to have open doors for those communications and conversations to take place will really, really set your board up for success with all of these aspects, teachers, students, and the community. I know we touched on it earlier about the hiring process of the superintendent with the board. Outside of that, though, how would you describe the relationship between the school board and the superintendent?
Well, you need to have a lot of respect and trust in your superintendent. He is the leader and he is basically the face of your school board. When he talks, people know that it's being directed from the board itself. So if you have trust and faith in your superintendent and believe in him and come up with that unified front along with him, it makes so much of a difference as far as his feelings, his aspiration to go on to make this one of the best school districts that he's involved in. Our superintendents, we've had a great history of retaining superintendents. Nick Poliak's our superintendent now, and he's been with us so far for 12 years, and
Wow.
he'll end up retiring with us. Our previous superintendent, I think, was somewhere around 9 years before she retired. So
Wow.
once you can build that trust up and you have that transparency and that faith in your superintendent and knowing that he can rely on the board to support him, it will keep that superintendent there and bring stability to your school district. And one of the other main thing of support for him, don't ever let him get blindsided. If you hear something out in the public, especially with social media, it hits so quick when people start to complain about this or that or say something negative about the schools, bring it to the superintendent's, attention. In some cases, it's just rumors. In other cases, he can at least dwell into it and contact an individual or a group and set up meetings to set any disparities aside and stay on top of the problems that may be starting to brew in your community.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of ongoing collaboration with the board and the superintendent, just kind of making sure everyone's got each other's back. Is that kind of fair to
Totally,
say?
totally. And when you have that security aspect and that security feeling that your superintendent has, he's going to stay with you. And your community, once they see that you've got a stable board, you've got a stable superintendent and administrators, it just brings so much more positive energy from your community not to be disruptive. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, with people going on the board, we have very little opposition. In my 20 years, there was only one person that wanted to get involved, and it was because she had a disagreement with how her child was, how she was treated in school by another teacher. And
Mm,
that's been the only real discrepancy that we've ever had. And our community trusts us because of these different factors.
that's great. Yeah, and again, a community trust is really a huge bedrock principle to have as a board. If you have the trust of the community, you're really set up for a lot of great success. Kind of speaking about the community and the school, how can board members support both staff and students and ensure that they all have the resources that they need?
Well, the first thing is basically make sure you budget for, professional development for your teachers and,
Mm-hmm.
and administrators. Also having money and student accounts for activities and field trips and different resources available for the students. Let the have data available to also help them with their teaching aspect for the teacher so that they can see where their highs and lows are and they can concentrate on a specific target. Um, Make sure too that your administrators have an open door policy for the teachers, that if they have any needs or concerns, and it works as well even for the students, for them to be able to, walk into a teacher's room or administrator's office. A lot of times our principal's at the front door greeting the students as they come in. You know, we have a tendency at Leiden to make everyone feel like this is one big, huge family. And,
Mm-hmm.
and in that family aspect, we take the highs and the lows and we go through the day all as one. One of the other things that we've done to help our teachers out is we had some construction done in our school, and we were able to build a part of our building that had a daycare center, that we brought in an outside daycare center for their children.
Oh,
And that way the teachers are able to concentrate more on the kids in the school and knowing at ease that their baby or their newborn is in our childcare service that just down the hall,
Mm-hmm.
that if they have any issues or needs, that was a big help with them. And then what it is with that is if there are still open slots available in the daycare center, we open it up then to any possibility of any of our pregnant moms that are students,
oh,
or children of our students. So they have the opportunity to continue on with their education as well, by putting their child into our daycare system. And the other aspect with the needs of the student are, like I said earlier, is the student board members. You just give them that opportunity. They'll come to your board. They'll give you and share information. And as long as you react on that, what the students board members bring to your table, it gives a sense of security to the rest of the students, knowing that we're not blowing them off. We're taking this advice that they're given to us and we're reacting to it and showing their needs are actually our concerns.
sure. Yeah. And these are great points. I think these are fantastic examples of supporting both not just the staff, but the students. Just want to make sure everyone's voice is being heard and needs are being taken care of. I think so far we talked about a lot of really great topics, and I wonder if maybe some of the newer elected members might be getting a little like heart palpitations thing about how much responsibility they have. Can you recall what the learning curve was like for you as a new board member, and maybe what that might be like for just board members in general?
Well, one of the biggest things is I actually got involved with ISB a lot later on in my career as a board member.
Hmm.
My early years, it never was a big success as far as getting that information out to us as a board. And as
Mm-hmm.
technology evolved, we started hearing more and more about IASB and what they have to offer. The state has mandatory state training.
Hmm.
IASB now has totally a raiment of classes and ability to take that, and they offer you for that to try and learn the budget, which is very hard, but at least understanding it a little bit. Again,
Mm-hmm.
IASB offers classes in that, and just have good communication, to learn that you're not there to run the school or tell a teacher how to teach, but you're there just to govern, and to let your superintendent do his job and let your teachers teach.
Yeah. Um, and especially with newer board members, a lot of school boards have like an orientation process or some sort of to pair them up with a more experienced member. Was that something you were able to do when you started off, and if not, what would you have wished would have been in a in that trial period or that orientation
When
process?
I was introduced on the board, I basically was taken out to dinner by the superintendent and board president. They laid a little bit of the groundwork down and everything, but in my aspect, it was more self-learning, self-taught, a lot of watching and listening and experience. And IASB, as I've learned, has a lot of stuff to help you get accumulated to what's going on in the board. And I have to pay a big attribute to IASB because of all the information that's out there now
Hmm.
for new board members.
Cool. Yeah, that's excellent. And yeah, we just recently revamped our online learning center. Highly encourage any new members and current members just to check it out because we've got all the great courses on there. I'll say mandated training, of course, and there's just some really great resource topics to delve into. Kind of zooming out a little bit more, thinking more about broad picture, just statewide. What do you think the biggest challenge faced by school board members in Illinois is today?
Probably the main one is finances.
Yeah.
If you can just keep your finances in check, that handles a majority of your issues and problems. But the other big issue is keeping politics, out of your boardroom. And with all these certain issues that you have to follow with state guidelines and just be transparent with the community. It's hard, but you have to find a way or a common ground of saying, hey, these group of students have these rights. These group of students have those rights.
Hmm.
We're being told what we can and can't do, and the government is the one that's forcing us to make issues. It's not us as board members making it, and we need to make sure that all students have equal access to the quality of education.
Hmm.
So it's a tough question to really answer as a whole without taking all the little factors inside, and the mandates are the ones that kill us as a board members. So we have to handle it as best we can. The other
Sure.
major issue coming up now, which has become really hot, is AI. How do you
Hmm.
interpret it? What are your board policies and with that? Um, are you going to teach it in your classrooms? Are you going to allow your students to have access to it? How do you identify those? That's one of the major key issues going on right now. And I know our superintendent was just down at Google headquarters on something in
Wow.
regards to AI. So that's the big upcoming issue right now.
Yeah, AI is one of those ones that's just you gotta be really nimble on that topic. It's an ever evolving thing. And I think more now than ever, it's just the importance of staying up to date with all the current topics of education and how these new technologies might impact it. I mean, it feels like it's never ending, but just being well informed, I think it just serves a lot of great purpose. What advice would you give to someone who's about to begin their volunteer service for the school board? Let's say maybe they've just done their first meeting, they're about to start their first meeting.
Probably the most important thing is read your board packet. If you have any questions of it, get in touch with your superintendent or your board president. Um, Let them know what all possible issues is that you may have leading into your board meeting. Because once you get into your board meeting, you don't want to bring something up that's going to humiliate your board president or your
Mhm.
fellow board member. So get that out of the way so it's not a public distraction, so you can attend strictly to business when you're in your meeting. Um, Also, start to slowly get acquainted with your fellow board members. For
Mhm.
me, it took a while. I had two board members that would at least check in and ask me how I'm doing, periodically. If they don't
Sure.
take the first step, you make the first step. Introduce yourselves to them prior to the board meeting, or when you're at the board meeting, just slowly start making small conversation with them. It'll help you get a little bit more comfortable. It'll help them understand who you are. And then, give it a few meetings before you really start to go gung-ho into setting whatever issues you want or addressing whatever problems there may be. So you slowly work your way into it and not just come out pounding your chest and I'm a new board member and this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. The board is a group, as you know, it operates as one, and making sure everyone's kind of on the same page and able to operate as a group is incredibly important. How can a board member, or how can a board as a whole, measure and evaluate their success? How can they know that they're doing the right things and on the right track?
Well, first of all, it sounds almost like I'm giving a commercial for IASB, but IASB offers some great self-evaluation aspects. This is a little
Mhm.
bit different for our board compared to the other boards that are out there because of our stability. But
Uh-huh.
basically, follow the data on your students' achievements, their success rates. You can follow their attendance, their graduation aspects. All that reflects back on how well your board is doing. Academic scores aren't always the easy factor to say, oh, their scores aren't state equivalent. But yet, if you
Mhm.
look at the overall picture from previous years, if you see a slight increase in that, that's an accomplishment. Also, it's not just strictly academics, it's life after high school for us. What
Yeah.
did the kids leaving the school with? In our case, our kids can get different certifications in foods, technology, welding, plumbing. Our college kids can come out with dual credits. Um, we have a process right now where we partnered with our junior college, and the students can come to our school for the first 2 years, freshman, sophomore, and then their junior and senior year, they go to Trine College. And at the end of that 4 years, they graduate not only with the high school diploma, but a associate degree as well. So when
Mm.
they want to go and continue their education, they've got that out of their way. They only have 2 more years to get their bachelor. So it
Mhm.
saves them not only a ton of money, but it's cutting down the time factor of getting their education all resolved. Also, for the community aspect, in our case, we ended up doing some major renovation and some additions to our campuses without an increase in the taxes to our taxpayers. So
Good.
on the community level, they not only see the success of our students, but they see the fact that what we're doing to maintain our buildings and keep our buildings open and running without any increase in taxes.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think your answer really helped kind of shed light on this idea that there's not really one single data point that like is the yes, you're doing a great job, no, you're not doing a good job. It's a really big collection of a lot of different types of data, a lot of different data spread across your entire district community. I mean, even comparing it with other school districts in the state, there is a lot to consider, and it's just something to kind of keep abreast of as a board member. Um, yeah, yeah, a great answer. Thank you. Jim, we have, as you mentioned, we have lots of great training opportunities on our website. We've got the online courses, we do webinars, in this podcast. And one of the main events that we do is the joint annual conference. One, if you'd like to share some of your thoughts about what it's like to attend for maybe a member who hasn't been there before.
That's one of the highlights of the year for school board members, I believe, would be to attend this conference. They have so much to offer. I try, or I do, at least a minimum of 3 classes a day plus a general session. The general sessions are so key in motivation to supporting what we believe in for public education. And they just get you so involved, and it's like that big cheering factor of rah-rahs to get you more excited about being at the conference. And IASB has so many different classes that they offer throughout the 3-day period that there's something there for everyone, whatever your niche is, whether it be through communications, financing, different programs that are being offered from other school districts. Being a 20-year veteran, I still to this day, I've been to every one of them. I still to this day go to different classes and at least, like I said, at least attend a minimum of 3 a day. It is what you make of it, but it's such a great experience, especially for the new board members. Your veterans can attend it too. And there's, like I said, there's so much learning for all board members in general that I would advise everyone to take advantage of that opportunity. And if a school district can't afford it, I do believe there is a scholarship program that's now being offered through IASB that you can apply for, and it will send you and set you up for the conference. So I would look into that if your district doesn't have the money and availability to send you. It just comes very highly recommended.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for plugging the conference. Again, it is the premier training experience for educators across the state. And, being in Chicago in November, it's just beautiful out there anyway. So I highly, highly encourage districts and the board member to up there to Chicago to take full advantage of the networking, the in-person learning, and everything that it has to offer. Jim, do you have any final thoughts or messages that you would like to share to our listeners or newly elected board members?
Well, basically, going back to some of my previous statements, as a new board member or even an experienced board member, get acquainted with the fellow board members. We at Leiden, we treat ourselves as a family. And if you think back at your own personal family issues, you do have arguments, you do have discrepancies, but at the end, you come together with one common goal and one common denominator. You're still family. You're still trying to do what's right for the students and the teachers and your staff and your employees. And if you can not have any hidden agendas and do it all for the right reason, you're going to end up with a very successful board. And one of the major factors at our board meeting, we have this on our wall in our boardroom, it states what's best for the kids. And if you can always think before you answer a question or take a vote, what's best for the kids, 100% of the time, 99% of the time, you're doing the right for that school district and for the children of your community. And so that's what I would say. Just do what's in your heart. And if you're there for the right reason, just do what's best for the kids, and you'll have a very successful tenure.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's an excellent mantra to have and a great attitude to have when making decisions for your school board and the community. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your expertise. I'm sure it is very much appreciated by new board members who are maybe just a little nervous or just about to get ready to serve in their first board meeting. I think you just offered a lot of fantastic insight and really value your contributions.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I hope this works out well for you guys in IASB. They are so much ever changing and rolling with the changes in society today and coming up with new ideas. I just wish I was starting fresh now as a new board member with everything that IASB has to offer. And I couldn't thank them for all their support that they give all of us board members.
Thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you for your dedicated volunteer service to public education. If you would like to stay up to date with future episodes, please consider following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or your platform of choice. Have a comment or question? We welcome listener feedback and invite you to send us an email at communications@iasb.com. Thank you.